The High Court in Pretoria has postponed the application regarding illegal miners still underground at the Stilfontein Mine in the northwest to Tuesday. The court ordered in the interim, pending the finalisation of the case, the mine must be unblocked for emergency personnel to access the miners and for miners to exit. The court says non-emergency personnel should not enter the mine shaft. This comes after the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution approached the court on an urgent basis. For more on this, we speak to lawyers for human rights advocate Mametlwe Sebei. Mametlwe, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Perhaps to start the conversation here, yesterday's court order doesn't place an obligation on the state just yet. That relief is yet to be adjudicated by the court. All it says is that the shafts must be opened so that emergency staff, rather, are able to go in and out to be able to retrieve the bodies. And perhaps to ask you this, because I did speak to the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution yesterday as the applicants in this case. But what is the jurisprudence that we have to rely on, that the court will rely on, in determining whether or not the state has an obligation, a positive obligation, to go in and rescue the mine workers, given that they're, technically speaking, in the act of commissioning a crime?
Well, I think there will be a constitutional right to life. There will be, a constitutional right to health. But also, to safety. All of these rights are protected in the Constitution. And I think what is actually happening here, and I think that's what we need to say, right? Most of the people involved, and that's just beyond the jurisprudence, these are people committing a crime of poverty. And I think that's what we need to underline. But I think for me, much more important is the fact that on the ground, I think thanks to the organization, the struggle, the resistance on the part of the community, the cooperation between, the police, the government, and the community is far more better. The comrades of Makua in particular have done a sterling job in terms of supporting the community. We've been working with them. And the agreement and the framework on the ground is in such a way that it goes beyond just an access for exit to facilitate a safe rescue. Most of those miners are emaciated, dehydrated, because what people don't realize is that the crisis only came to public attention in the past week or two. But those mine workers have actually been denied food, water, and medical supplies for over 2 to 3 months.
But the state argues that they've given them, they specifically, as part of the objective of Operation Valamkoti, they specifically denied or at least closed off any entry and exit into these mine shafts so that the mine workers trapped underground, not trapped, but who are underground, could come to the surface so that they can be processed by the law. So they had, the argument by the state is that they had the option to come up and they refused to do so.
Well, the report that I got when I arrived there, because one is that mine workers are coming out, right? You have reported 12, and people may be asking why 12 after such a long time. I was there yesterday. What you are talking about here is dragging somebody 2 kilometers down there, right? And using a manual labor, a process which actually takes about an hour to just drag out one person. And the way is so backbreaking, the amount of work that goes into it. The people that actually did it, I mean, they had to be given a leave to rest today. These are members of the community, family members. After they actually drag out one person, you can't even say that they can do it again. Yesterday, they worked from the morning until late in the evening when I left there. And I can tell you that nobody was resisting. Everybody was coming out, but you could only take out 4 people. That is the level of the intensity of the work that is involved. Even the mechanical rescue team that is going to be put in place. The reality is that I'm told they will come with a crane that will be able to take 8 people at a go, obviously over the same amount of time, and that's just going to take days. So the point I'm saying is that people are trapped by emaciation, dehydration, and I think, just lack of strength to be able to do that. And when the police went there for the first time, what I learned is that they just denied any form of communication between families and the communities without themselves communicating any message to the people underground to say that they must come out. So people just saw food not coming, and of course, that created the crisis that almost escalated into, in fact, it has escalated into a tragedy that we are dealing with now.
Yeah, just lastly, and this is an important question based on the case, the precedence that it sets here, the state might want to argue, is that it creates an obligation on the state to rescue and assist anyone for any reason whatsoever in the process of commissioning a crime. The state may want to argue that it puts them in a very difficult position where they may be finding themselves aiding and abetting criminal activity, should that be the case. Have you given forethought to how that could potentially play out and what the legal response to that could be?
Let's address the fundamental issue here. What we are dealing with is two layers of zamazamas, right? One is predominantly disparate former mine workers, their families and communities who have been dumped by the big mining corporations that ran this operation. And we are in this situation with mines that are not properly sealed, environment and land that is not adequately rehabilitated, mining communities that are left in economic distress because of lack of investment, in diversification of economy, in building resilient communities that can transition to sustainable post-mining communities. That's what we are dealing with here. Most of those are the people that basically are just scavenging on the gold that nobody's interested in, because mining industry are saying they don't want that gold since they can't mine it profitably. Now, the task here is to regulate that industry. Many of these mine workers that are actually involved are actually forming a company that already has been registered. In actual fact, I'm told they were given one mine dump, and they are in a course of regularizing and applying the thing. Obviously, in the absence of a state support, particularly with equipment, access to capital and the market, most importantly, what we have is an organized criminal syndicates that have now entered that vacuum. And what they do, they are terrorizing communities, engage in acts of violent murders, rapes, and all these horrific criminal activities that many people have, have been engaging about. And I think it is that need to be dealt with. And how do you deal with it? What makes them almost essential is the fact that these are people that control the network of access to market in illicit trading on minerals, in which, by the way, they're not alone. Big mining operations, the police, and key sectors of the state are part of it. The idea that those poor mine workers do and can be able to transport gold and other minerals from those shafts to the port without the police and outside of the country, and having this mineral traded to the tune of billions without people with license to mine and trade on minerals is not true. So we've got to be dealing with that. And this government is not dealing with that because key parts of their state are actually involved. And I think the only solution, regularize industry, support these mine workers to earn decent, honest living for themselves, their families and communities.
Mametlwe Sebei, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your insights and having this conversation with me. On the other side of this, we continue with the full view. And of course, we bring you another conversation a little bit later on President Ramaphosa's intervention into the poisoning crisis that has spread across the country from townships and spaza shops operating in townships.